We are going to cover a lot more things tonight. And if you feel something is missed out anytime, just stop me, ask questions. So what is my goal tonight? Tonight, our goal is to cover S3. Now, S3 known as a simple storage service. If you are going for a normal exam, which is called AWS basic exam, which I believe it's 900, right? In that exam, they will ask you, what is the full form of S3? What is the full form of S3? Which is nothing but simple storage services. Very simple question. S3 itself is nothing but storage. So you can say S3 is designed for cloud storage. We'll talk about what it is, right? Trust me, it's so much fun. Learning S3 is so much fun. Why? Because it's so easy and so powerful. In case if you want to see the picture, it's called bucket. Mostly we'll use bucket, like beautiful bucket, and we'll talk about all those bucket related things. So S3 is designed for cloud storage. When AWS released S3, so AWS started with first service called EC2, Elastic Cloud Computing. That's their first service. And it worked. Many people started using it, and they generated around, I believe, $10+ billion. But then the second service they introduced, which is S3, which becomes significantly popular. After S3, AWS kind of captured almost entire ecosystem. One point, only AWS was the cloud provider. And S3 was one of the most simplest, more popular, and most cheapest service AWS offered. Even I may not be wrong if I say that even currently, storage perspective, S3 is still the simplest service and cheapest compared to Azure or Google, because they have done so nicely. And from first attempt to till today, they have been winning people for storage aspect. Trust me, if you have even a little bit background or you have zero background, you can still work in S3. The only requirement for tonight's class, you should have AWS account, AWS console account. If you have that, that's it. You can do the tonight's lab. Okay. So we'll talk about what is S3 and why it's so popular, right? Why it's so popular? Because you will not find any architecture without S3, because every architecture people use. Think about Netflix. Every Netflix employee knows S3 because all your movies which you see, all those dramas and all those serials you see, those are coming from S3, right? So if you think about, if you heard about a word called Snowflake, have you heard about what is Snowflake means? There is one of the most popular cloud provider, Snowflakes. They use only S3. That's all. The whole business is S3. They store all the data in S3 and then they do all analysis. So if you have heard about Airbnb, right? They only use S3. Any PDF or document sign you think about, they only use S3. You will not find any architecture or any project where people don't use S3. Nowadays, all the IoT device, Internet of Things, they only use S3 because it's simple, easy, and powerful. So S3 is very popular among big, gigantic companies. And of course, their case studies make S3 much more popular. Snowflakes, when they started, and in case if you do not know Snowflake, how many of you know Snowflakes, first of all? Just like Azure, just like AWS, just like a Google, Snowflakes is very popular in a data warehouse type of community. So if you want to do data analysis, people know Snowflakes in and out. This recently came in the market based on public. They went public. Initially, they were thought about it's $100 million company, but they came out with billions of dollar company, $4-5 billion company, because the simplest architecture. They only use S3. That's all. They don't use anything else, right? So we'll talk about it. We'll also talk about the concept. Please pay attention. The concept about EBS, which is called Elastic Block Storage versus Object Storage. So this is what normally people ask in interview. S3 is not a block storage. S3 is object storage. So we'll talk about that. What's the difference between? Second thing, people will ask about cost optimization. So cost optimization perspective, S3 has various storage class. The storage class will help you to understand how to optimize the cost. It's very important that you understand the cost, because in your exam questions, there will be a lot of questions where performance is important, or scalability is important, or security is important, or cost is important. So if cost is important, you do need to know what specific storage class you need to use. Second thing is about replication. Trust me, many people are not very clear about replication versus failover. S3 provides both solutions. S3 has durability, it has availability. So it has availability, durability, and availability. So it provides availability, and it also provides replications. So we'll talk about that also. S3 by default provides static website, or you can say web server. So you can use web server. So S3 allows web server. So you can host your website. S3 also allows you redirection. So you can redirect to certain things to your own website or some other website. You can do redirect, and I'll show you how to do that. S3 is all about storage, and then S3 provides certain permissions. By default, they use DD, deny by default. But then we'll talk about how you control permissions in S3, object permissions, right? And then also you can say how you can provide expiry date, that certain things will automatically expire with certain window. So you can create window-based permissions, means you can say you can access between 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. like that. S3 also provides you some kind of triggering mechanism, that if somebody add or update file, so you can trigger. So you can trigger the data. Trigger a Python program or Lambda program. We'll talk about that. S3 also provide document management type of thing, which we call version management. There's a lot of things to cover, trust me. But best way to cover is first understand this thing. You may expect around minimum 5 questions in your exam. Most of the interview, you will easily understand if you know today's topic, because all questions are kind of easy if you understand the concept. S3 itself gives you LCM, lifecycle management. So it does give you lifecycle management, and we'll talk about that also. So I have 6 to 7 labs to cover, and once I cover that, I'll also give you homework. First of all, thank you for doing homework. Many of you did a good job in the project, which is good. I'm hoping that you enjoy working with this group. Whatever you do in the classroom, if you do the homework, it kind of give you extra practice, which will help you for exam preparations. Because most of the time, when you do the exercise, this homework, it will give you an idea how the GUI works. Because some of the questions will come from the GUI, how everything works in a S3. Sounds good? Any questions before I start today's session? Are you guys excited with the agenda? Right? So let's get started. So first thing first, in S3, there are some terms we need to understand. So first of all, terms. I'm trying to explain in a picture form, make sure we all understand. So S3, normally in Windows, when you have folder, and folder has a files, or you can have files, or you can have subfolders. So in Windows, your folder, and your files. And sometimes you have folders. We call subfolder, right? This is what normally in Windows you do. In S3, we don't call folder, but we call bucket. Speak with me. Bucket. It's okay to speak up. What do you call? Bucket. And the file, we don't call file, we call object. That's the first terminology. We need to make sure we are very clear. So it's an object. Now, bucket is nothing but folder. So whatever you call in Windows folder, it's a bucket. And whatever in Windows you call file, here we call object. Clear? So whenever I say object, think about picture, think about movies file, think about song, think about document, think about Excel file, think about PowerPoint. Any file you think about it, image, movie, picture, songs, all are object. Make sense? That's why S3 is known as an object storage. What kind of storage? Object. You can add anything. S3 does not know it's a PowerPoint. S3 does not know this is the Excel. S3 does not know it's a Word doc. S3 treat it as an object. Are we clear? S3 doesn't care what file you have, just store as an object. Now you say, but then what's the difference? So in a Windows, please pay attention. In Windows, when you get a file, big file, Windows first think your hard drive. Windows think about hard drive. So in your hard drive, Windows will think about that you have track. Every hard drive will have track. Look at every tracks are divided into sector. So Windows always think about how do I store the file. So Windows will think about this file. This portion will be maybe track one, and sector maybe 1. This portion may be stored in track 2, maybe sector 2. This portion may be stored in track 3 and sector 3. So Windows normally divide the file and store into sector. So first of all, why? Because Windows wants to optimize the storage. But when you want to read the file, what will happen? You have a stepper motor. The stepper motor has to go to particular track, particular sector to read that chunk. Then it has to move, the stepper motor has to move again to get the another sector to read the chunk. The stepper motor has to go again, read the chunk. The stepper motor has to go again, read the chunk. So as stepper motor is reading the chunk, what will happen? Stepper motor becomes slow. Make sense or not? Because you are reading hard drive. So in Windows, you are optimizing storage, but then when you try to read that, you're slow. Make sense or not? Why? Because your files are divided into multiple chunks. So you need to grab all chunks from different sector and different track. That's why in a Windows, when you read file, your hard disk is continuously blinking. Make sense or not? Because stepper motor is continuously reading that, and that is the reason it's kind of slow. New concept, which we now know, SSD, has different thing. SSD is faster because you're going to store the data in a flat surface, so you're going to get data faster. However, what S3 does, it doesn't do slicing. S3 says that whatever file you give me, listen carefully, I'm going to store entire file in one location. Entire file. The file can be 0 byte or file can be 5 terabyte file. So if you have 5 terabyte file, entire file will be stored in one location. The benefit, you can read faster. Make sense or not? 5 terabytes. So each object, you can store 5 terabytes. So your file can go that long or that high. The size wise, it can go up to 5 terabytes. If you're going for normal exam, which is called Cloud Practitioner, they will ask question, what would be the minimum size of the bucket? 0 byte. What is the maximum size of the bucket? 5 terabytes. Make sense? So does it mean S3 only store 5 terabyte? No, each object 5 terabytes. So you can have as many objects you want. S3 gives you infinite storage. Speak with me. Infinite storage. Now, what is the difference? In a block storage, this concept is called block storage. So in a block storage, you are dividing file into block. In S3, we do object storage. So object storage means you store entire file as an object. Do you see the difference? So block storage divide the file into chunk and then store in a small block, while S3 store entire file. Now the question is, Can S3 hold operating system? Can S3 hold operating system? Can you install operating system in S3? Can I install Windows? Answer is no. Because when you want bootable device, S3 is not a bootable device. For bootable device, when you are creating EC2 instance, right? If you remember, when you do EC2 instance, you get EBS, 8 gigabyte EBS. That's the block storage. So operating system perspective, you cannot use S3. Can I copy AMI? AMI means image. Can I copy image? Answer is yes. You can copy image, but you cannot install. What is the difference? So when I have a new brand machine, if I install operating system, then I can start the machine with that operating system. You guys agree or not? So through that, I can start my machine. That's the install. Copy image. Image is just like object, just like a thing about your, and placing a paper or a folder somewhere. It is not going to boot. It is just used for storage purpose. S3 is just storage. It is not a bootable device. You can use as a file sharing system. You can use if you want, but it is not a bootable device. Make sense? So in exam, if there are questions about, especially the cloud practitioner, there will be a question, can I use S3 as a bootable? No, it is just for storage. Can I install operating system? No, it is just for storage. So far, so good. Now, why it is so popular? So S3 become popular because S3 gives you guarantee, which we call SLA, service level agreement. Service level agreement. So SLA perspective, S3 gives you two things: availability and durability. Availability and durability. So what is available means? Available means whenever I go, I can access it. Durability means if machine goes down, machine comes up, will my data will be available? Machine goes up or down, will my data available? That's called durable. If I restart my machine and if I try to access, will I be able to access? So that's a durable. Available means I access at 8 o'clock, 1 a.m., 4 p.m., 6 a.m., 3 a.m. Whenever I access, I should have a accessibility. Means I should have access to the data. Durability means peace of mind. No matter what happens, my data will not be lost. So durability means data loss perspective guarantee. Availability means access perspective guarantee. So far, so good. So there will be a question if you are going for cloud practitioner exam. What is the availability guarantee for S3? So that's called 4.9. How many nines? 4.9. So we call 9.9. So this is the availability guarantee S3 gives you. But when you talk about durability, it's 11 nines. 11 nines. 9, 9. There are 2 nines and then another 9 nines here. So think about that. There is no way you will lose data. That's what Amazon gives you. 9 nines like this. Make sense? So AWS says that no matter what happens, I will not lose your data. This means in 1 million years, you might lose one-time data. In 1 million years, this guarantee so far no one is giving. Instantly has to become popular because first is available and second is a durable. What else you need? So think about it. You have family pictures, or you have movies, or you have songs. You want to store for safe, secure place. You can add in S3. It's reasonably good, means it doesn't cost much money, and it will be safe haven. You are not going to lose your data. That's guarantee S3 gives you. And when you need it, you can access it. It's going to be a lot cheaper than buying up terabytes of hard drive. Even you have gigabyte or petabyte, you can still store it. Not a problem at all. S3 allows infinite storage at a reasonable cost and highest availability and highest durability. So there is no way you can find better deal than anyone else. Make sense? Any questions so far? So let me ask, what is bucket here?
Folder.
Folder. And what is object here? Any kind of files. Word document, PowerPoint, Excel, doesn't matter. S3 doesn't care. Clear? Second, can we install operating system? No. Why? Because it's object storage. It's not a block storage. Make sense? Because there's no water goes and boot, right? Because it's extended. It's not like attached. You cannot attach S3. It's not your mount point, which you can attach with your machine. Just like a VM, remember we attach EBS. And so that's why you can boot from there. S3 is just used for extended storage.
So that means, like, how people think like they can run like application app from the database, like from the cloud. So then it won't be ideal for apps either, right?
Now, good question. Now, good question. So just like in your hard drive, your partition, C drive and D drive. So you install, let's say, Microsoft Office in D drive, you can start, you can use it, yes or no?
Yeah.
That's called application. S3 is not application. S3 is object. So when you use Microsoft Office, an output of that Word document, right? Yes or no? That Word document you can store in S3, but you cannot run as an Office because it doesn't know what is Office means. But when you create a Word file, Excel file, PowerPoint, you can copy it in S3. You can copy as a storage, but you cannot use it install as an application. Make sense or no? Right? Let's example I work for a company where I'm getting thousands of resumes. How many? Thousands of resumes. I see my hard drive is not catching up. Can I store thousands of resumes in S3? Answer is yes. Can I store entire world books there? Answer is yes. How many of you know Netflix? Almost everyone, right? All the movies on Netflix are right now stored in S3. Anything, any pictures, world pictures, map, the Google map, you are seeing the Google map, right? All the map image, zoom in, zoom out when you see PPT, right? Turn by turn, yes or no? Those images are billions of images, right? You can store in S3? Yeah. So you can do map, you can do all those weather reports, any like CNN news, everything you can store in S3. And it is dirt cheap. You can have all those storage in less than $5. So you don't have to buy a hard drive. And if you buy a hard drive, it is fixed on your computer. S3 is global. Whenever and wherever you want, you can access it. Make sense? Okay. Question. Okay, so let me jump into the slide. I want to make sure we respect the slide. So first is the simple storage services. And it is known as a bucket. As you go further, most of my experience with the industry is more industrial. I work for industrial type of client where every day they generate gigabytes or petabytes of data every day. So think about that, like power generation. Think about windmill. Think about like solar system. Think about IoT device. Think about IoT device. Think about cars. Think about GPS. They generate billions of data points. And when you collect those data points, somewhere you need to store. So you can process it. S3 provides you infinite storage, so S3 is naturally good for data storage. So far, so good. Make sure you understand the concept because it's very, very important that you know the concept. There are three things I want you to understand, not just like doing a lab. But that is anybody can do that. Concept is extremely important, so you make use of S3 as an architect perspective. Because in your interview, people will ask you questions with architecture. I'm going to show you 4 or 5 use cases where people use it and why people use it. It is very popular. I can tell you without any hesitations that if you are using AWS, guaranteed you are going to use S3. Why? Because it's so appealing with the benefits. And there are hundreds of use cases where S3 is the ideal candidate for the storage service perspective. So we'll talk about that. As we go further, S3 has a difference. We talk about the object storage, its entire file storage at the one place, and the block storage, you do blocks and you store block in a different segment. And when you read it, you have to aggregate that. While in S3, when you read it's very fast because you're reading at one shot. You're reading in one shot, You're not moving around stepper motor, neither you are doing anything. So your reading is much, much faster. So object perspective, you're storing at an entire file. You're not really chunking it. So now there will be a question in your interview. This will not be the question in your exam, but there are most popular storage in the world is S3, HDFS, and blob. These are like interview perspective, very popular questions. Now, blob normally offered by Azure. HDFS is mostly for Hadoop, and S3 is for simple storage. These are all kind of infinite storage. These are storage solutions. So in industry, there is a concept called V, and V. So V means volume. Volume means large volume. So when you have large volume of data, you have choice to make. Should I use S3? Should I use HDFS? Or should I use blob? So far, HDFS was the only solution, which is called Hadoop solution. So far, for volume, there is a varieties and there is a velocity. Now, this is not we are not going to talk today because that's not the point of today. But volume means large volume of data, which normally you cannot store. So think about Google. Entire world data. Do you think there will be a hard drive where you can store entire world data? No. So Google has to come up with something. So Google came up with a concept called HDFS. That concept, this HDFS actually came by Google paper. So Google has published a paper called GFS, Google File System, and that translated by Yahoo and created HDFS. So HDFS is nothing but it's a Google file system. They published paper in 2001, I believe. There are two papers they published. One is they published MapReduce. That's the paper they published, MapReduce. And the second paper they published is GFS, Google File System. Means how Google stores entire world data as a one hard drive. So they logically connect all hard drive in the world and create as a one hard drive so you can infinitely store. So HDFS is one of the solution, but there is a problem. HDFS only work with Hadoop. So if you use Hadoop, it will work. But what if I'm not using Hadoop? Then there was no solution. So I worked for Hadoop for many, many years, almost 8 or 9 years I worked. Hadoop was super duper popular. But the day S3 introduced, which is I think 2017, 2018, people shifted to S3 because S3 can work with Hadoop and S3 can work with non-Hadoop also. If you are using Python, you can use S3. If you are using R, Java, any language you are using, you can use S3. But HDFS has a limitations. You cannot use for other reasons. Hadoop has to be there. Installing Hadoop, configuring Hadoop, it's pretty painful. S3 is painless because S3 is a managed service. Speak with me. Means you don't have to do anything. Who does everything? AWS does. So S3 is a managed service. You don't do anything. So it's kind of piece of mind. It's just you open the tap and you start getting water. You don't have to do plumbing, neither you have to do pipeline. You just start using it. Make sense? Within 2 minutes, you will start using it. I'll show you. That they made it so simple. So S3 become instant popular among available stores. Now blob. Blob came little later. Azure does not have other options. So Azure provides blob storage, which you store the tons of data there as well. But when you compare S3 versus blob, I would have more, I would say, tendency with S3 because the wide varieties of usage you can use in S3. So far, so good. So now let's move on. First, everyone should understand web service. How many of you know web service? It's okay to say yes, no, right? What is web service means? So I'll give you a crash course. I have limited slides, but I will give you a crash course, so making sure you understand. First of all, web and service. Web means internet, and service means program which is accessible via internet. Web means internet, and service means a program which is serving, providing some functionality via internet. So if service is accessible or consumed via internet, then we can call web service in easy language. So example, when I do Google search, that's called web service. Means I can search, and Google can provide me data. When I do Google Map, it's a map service. Makes sense or no? I can do map, on a web. So now when you do web service, there is a protocol. So example, if I talk to someone in English, there is a grammar. When I speak, another person can understand. You guys agree or not? If I don't follow grammar, it would be confusing. Same thing, web service, there are two types of people. One is the provider and one is the consumer. They talk among each other with certain protocol. So all entire AWS follow the protocol REST. They use REST. REST itself is not really a protocol, but I'm using simple language, a mode of communication. Speak with me. Mode of communication. It's not a legal protocol. It is just a mode of communication. This will be a question in your exam. And when you are going for architecture role, without web service, you will not be successful. Let me repeat again. So you need to understand REST service very well, because anytime you use wearable device or portable device or smart appliances or smart IoT devices, you have to use web service. Without web service, cloud is useless. So best usage of cloud is web service, because cloud is only one. And the consumers are maybe tablet, maybe phone, maybe device. So cloud consumers can be hundreds of consumers. And the talk between consumers and cloud happens through the web service only. So far, so good. Now what is this web service and how it works? So let's talk about it. So client always send requests. Client send request. The request is we call payload. What we call payload. Now, most of the time, the request is what you need. So example, if I want to search in Google, then my payload will be say, hey, I have a question, and this is my questions. You kind of put in a nice, beautiful JSON format. And when it goes here, then Google service will interpret it and then run the program and give you response. That response will also come in a JSON. Make sense or not? So sending and receiving, both things will happen through JSON. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JavaScript Object Notation. JavaScript Object Notation is very popular in the last 15 years because browser understand. So all your browser, like example, Safari, Google Chrome, they all understand. You don't have to do much programming. So it's instantly available and understood by browser, so you can see right away data. Now, you don't need to be an expert in a web service. Let me repeat. Understand concept. Without request, no response. Are we clear? Say yes or no. Without request, no response. Clear? So if I say I'm thirsty, what would you give me? Water. I'm hungry, what would you give me? Right? So when I speak, you give the answer accordingly. Yes or no? So this is the same way. Web service has only 4 words. 4 words. And those 4 words you understand, you know web service high level. So if I say I'm thirsty, you give me water because you understand thirst. Same thing, if you are using web service, you need to understand 4 words, and those words will be in 1 word in your exam. Okay? So you need to understand each word has a meaning. So when I said thirsty, you did not give me food, you give me water because you understand the word. Make sense? So those 4 words, what are those words? Let's talk about it. So as I go further, the first word is get. What comes in your mind? Get means, if I say, get me water, what does it mean? If I say, get me water, what does it mean? You request, and I'm going to get water. Yes or no? Get me water. So get means when you want to receive something. If you want to receive something, what are you going to do? Get. Right? Now, if I say, place this paper over there, or place the book over there. Yes or no? So here, instead of place, you have 2 options. Right? So put, when you do put, post means you are saying create it. Post means create it. And if you say put, means change it. Change it or update it. So example, if I'm creating an account, brand new account, what would I use? Post or put? Post. Are we clear? Brand new account, I'm going to do post. But let's say I want to change my phone number. Put. Do you guys agree? So put means I'm changing small thing or something, but there is an assumption that item already there. So if I want to change my phone number, my detail must be there, yes or no? If my detail is not there, then I may get an error. Do you guys agree or not? So when you do put, you're assuming somebody have done post for you. Do you guys agree or not? So post is always first, because first time you create, and rest of the time you're going to do put. The third one, fourth one is quite easy, delete, which is remove. So how many words you have? 4. Get means you're requesting. So like example, in the morning, I want to see the Shamberg, what you call weather report. What am I going to do? Get. Yes or no? But let's say I want to do like example point A to point B. I want to go to Chicago, and I want to get the traffic. So what am I going to do? Get traffic. But then I want to make change, and I want to add intermediate destination. Then I'll do put, yes or no. Let's say I want to create my own new account. So this is what company does. So when you create a first account with Netflix, what they're gonna do? Post. When then you change every time when you watch movie, you change your preferences. What they're gonna do? Put. Do you guys agree or not? And when you remove your account, so it's not a rocket science. And good news, last 12 plus years, these 4 words are only used. There are other words are there, but these are most popular words. I don't want to confuse with other words because you may not use often. Only developer use that. There are patch and there is a head also there. However, you may not use it. In your exam, guaranteed they will be there. Now the question is how it will work, which I will cover after 2 weeks. So next week I'll do VPC, and then I'll cover again web service with Lambda. Make sense? That time I'll cover that with example how it works. But right now for this class, I want to make sure you understand S3 supports all of them. So when I want to add file, what should I use? Post. When I add file, I'm creating. When I update file, that's not possible. Technically, it's not possible in S3 because in S3 you cannot update it because it uses entire file. So update really is not working in S3. So you have 2 choices. You can create it or you can delete it. So you can say, but what if I want to update it? Your choice, rename it. So you have 2 copies, which we call version management. Speak with me. Version management. So example, I created my resume, which is today. I created first resume. So it's a post. But then I realized I need to make a change. After 1 hour, I create another resume. My first name, last name is same. So my resume title is same. Yes or no? My file name is same. If I copy, it will try to override it. Yes or no? S3 by default does not override. It does not override because data loss will happen, right? If I override, data loss will happen. So S3 will say, wait a minute, your same name, old one is version 1 and new one is version 2. Makes sense or not? So version 1, version 2, and S3 allows version management, but it does not override data. Are we clear? So far so good. And if you want to remove it, then definitely you're going to do delete. Good. Okay. So far, any questions? Good. Now we talk about S3 is the object storage. S3 is non-optimal storage solution for operating system. We talk about that. Are you clear with that? So if somebody asks, when you create EC2 instance, at the same time, if you do S3, it doesn't work. Can I do S3 usage from EC2? Answer is yes. But S3 cannot be used for operating system. Make sure you understand. Initially, when I studied S3 long time back, I was a little confused. I was working for Nokia. I was saying why they are using S3. I could not understand. But now, then slowly I realized. Think about traffic data. Please visualize me. You will understand use case. Okay, this use case you won't find from book. Do you guys agree that we have millions of cars on a road?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Do you think they drive day in and day out?
Yeah.
So if somebody asks you, listen carefully, in a 1 single second, how many cars being driven in the United States? Just think about it. 1 million, 100 million, 200 million, 500 million. What do you guys think?
100.
Easily 300 million. Now each and every driver may have a cell phone. Person is not driving is also using cell phone. There are iPass, iBooth, yes or no? There are a lot of sensors are there. Now think about in a second, cell phones, the iPass, iBooth, cars, everyone is sending data. How fast data is coming, think about it. In 1 second, almost billion points you receive. And you have to process those billion points and store. So there are two problems, velocity and volume. Velocity and volume. This all you can easily solve with Amazon. So right now we are talking about storage, which is volume. So we store also all data and create a data lake. Speak with me, data lake. So in traffic, data keeps coming. In traffic, the rule number one is after 15 minutes, data become stale data, because there is no way you use those data. It's not meaningful because 15 minutes after, data is no longer useful. So we have to store that as a historical data, just to have because some kind of pattern, what happened yesterday, what happened last week, what happened last month, what happened last year, what happened 10 years back, just for pattern purpose. But real data is coming on a fast speed. So data continuously grow and you have to process the data. So there is a concept called data lake, right? So whenever we talk about data lake and all, this S3 will comes in picture, because you can store as much data you want. Make sense or no? Now, this data is used by Google, Nokia, and others to give you TBT, turn by turn. How fast it happens. Do you notice that? If you just make a detour, within a 10-20 seconds, it will take you readout. That type of operating system, S3 is heavily used. And of course, there are other services are used also, because S3 allows fast retrieval also. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. You can store 10 years data or 100 years of data in S3, and cost will be significant. Make sense? Now, moving along, we talk about this, so I'll skip that for now. Now let's do first exercise for the day. Are you guys ready? Let's log into AWS console. The first exercise for the day, AWS console login. If you don't have an account, you should create it, but I'm hoping that all of you have an account because you've been using for a while. So once you go to AWS console, then log in. While I'm doing the lab, I'll also explain some of the concept. Concept number 3, S3 by default is a global, listen carefully. When you create a bucket name, listen carefully. When you create a bucket name, that's a globally unified name. So globally unique. Globally unique. Remember this thing. When you create a bucket name in S3, it's a globally unique. What does it mean? So if I use name Tom123, no one in the world can use that bucket name. Bucket means folder. So bucket name is globally unique. So if you make a mistake and that bucket is taken, then no one else can take that bucket. And that bucket you keep it, it means entire world cannot use that name. So you need to be careful when you create a bucket name. If somebody has taken bucket name, then you will not be able to do so. So bucket name is globally unique. Now, when you create object, listen carefully. When you create object is stored in a particular region. So particular region object is stored, but S3 does allow you replication. So you can replicate object any part of the world. I'll show you step by step. Okay. So remember, S3 will be storing in a region. The objects are stored in a region in the sense of Ohio or Virginia, but its name is globally unique. Ready? So let's start. Search here S3. Search here S3. We can search S3 and then click on this one. Amrit, you're with me? Yeah. So search S3 and then click here. And when you click on this, you will have options which is called S3 console. I'm hoping all of you are here. I have a good news for you. They just changed what you call view today. I was teaching this AWS class like 2 hours back, and I was surprised with that they have changed almost all views. I was having a little bit difficulty to find where are those views, where are these items, because they changed it. I think yesterday it was good, today they changed it. So seems like they have changed. Good news, I have done a little bit exercise prior to this class, so it's going to be helpful. But we have to do a little bit figure it out type of thing. If you all are here, I just want to make sure by default here is a buckets, right? Now, if you see here, there's an option called create bucket. So let's click on that. That's the first click you're gonna do. Create bucket. Ready? So when you click on create bucket, it's going to give you option. Relax and enjoy the ride. Okay. Bucket name. Try to use unique bucket name. Maybe use your name, right? And then use maybe today's date, right? Make it unique. Don't do space. Don't use special character. So today is Jan. What is the Jan? 24. And then you can come up with 1, 2, 3, something like that. So check it out. So I'm going to create a bucket. So let's example, my bucket is Tom, 1, 2, 3, John, 24, and I will say ABC. Again, come up with a unique name. If this name is taken, you will not be able to create. Don't come up with a special character or space. Use only words and numbers. It does specify you cannot use uppercase, lowercase also. Sorry for that. Right? This name has to be globally unique. Now, if you go down, you can select region. Again, region you should select based on the customer base you have or your applications. Where is your application running? So if my customer base in Sydney, then I would select the region Sydney. Or if my customer base in India, then I'll select Mumbai. Make sense? But right now, I'm going to keep the name and I'll not change the region because it looks like ES2 is fine. Right? Now the question is how S3 will charge. S3 charge very differently. So first of all, listen carefully. When you bring data in, that's called ingestion. What do you call? Ingestion. Ingestion is free. So bringing data to the S3 is completely free. Make sense or not? But then, as soon as you start storing here, they do charge storage charge. They charge storage. Then, if you extract the data from storage, right, they will charge. So they charge based on storage and based on extract. So far so good. Now there will be a lot more question if you're going for cloud practitioner exam. How can you optimize storage cost? Because it will accumulate, right? So they have a very interesting thing. Listen carefully. Beautiful thing. I like it. Normally, I don't find such kind of things. That's why I'm very excited to share that. They have transparent pricing. Speak with me. Transparent pricing. So Amazon themselves say that. Ask question. Listen, are you going to use data tomorrow or today or in next 5 minutes? They will ask question. If you say I need immediately, then your correct answer is you need to store in a standard storage. Standard storage means you write and you read frequently. Write and read frequently. Listen carefully. It's use case. So example, if I'm storing like Netflix, it's instantly write and read. Ask yourself question. Instantly write and read.
Yes.
Technically speaking, if you write and read, so like example, if Netflix write and you read instantly, then it is a standard storage. But let's say I have my hard drive, which is my older machine hard drive. I have, let's say, 200 gigabyte. I want to take a backup and then I want to store. Will I be using instantly? No. Maybe once in a while, yes. So then they have option called, this is a standard. If you are not going to use in a day or 2 or week, then there is a concept called infrequent access. Infrequent access. Infrequent. Infrequent means you are not accessing regularly. So when you store in infrequent, the cost goes down. Cost goes down. Are we understanding? Cost goes down, but when you try to retrieve, it may take a little time, maybe a minute, maybe 10 seconds, but you won't get instantly. Here in standard, you get instantly, but in infrequent, you can write, but read time, it will take a little time. You will have latency. Speak with me, latency. So you will have a little bit latency, infrequent. But let's say sometime you say, I'm not going to need it for a year or maybe 10 years. In that case, they have another thing called glacier. Glacier. So glacier, it's, you can write it, but when you retrieve, it's going to take a couple of hours to get the data. So you have to wait for that. If you are okay with that, then glacier is a lot cheaper, dirt cheap compared to standard. Standard, let's say you are paying maybe 10 cents. In glacier, you will pay 0.01 cents. It's a 10 to 100 times cheaper, glacier. So if somebody take a database backup, would they put in standard or would they put in glacier? Yeah. So you can decide like where you want to put based on your use cases. If you are going to store just for safety net, then you should use glacier. If you think like I don't need now, but I need like after 10 days, infrequent. Standard you should use only when you need right away. Makes sense, sir? Now you say, but I don't understand. How do I know all those things? Amazon said, don't cry. I'll give you a life cycle management. Listen carefully. Amazon gives you life cycle management, they call LCM. Tell me, Amazon said, tell me, do you want life cycle management? You configure. After 30 days, if I don't use it, then automatically Amazon will move from standard to infrequent after 30 days. If you don't use another 30 days, then infrequent will automatically go to glacier. This way, Amazon is helping you to minimize the cost because you don't have to put all in standard. And if you put it accidentally, Amazon say, if you set up life cycle, then we'll take care for you. In this way, your cost will go down. Make sense or not? And when you use it, we'll get it. At that time, we'll educate infrequent and we'll educate standard. So again, it will restart. So if you use it, then that time, maybe 15, 20 days, we'll keep it in standard. And if you're not using again, it will go like that. So who is managing? AWS is going to manage the object lifecycle. This is most companies follow that. Why? Because you don't want to penalize because you don't know you need tomorrow or you need after 10 days. In that case, you hand over your responsibility to AWS, which is called lifecycle management.
Free or
there is a cost associated because, of course, there is nothing called free, right? Except not even nowadays, water is also not free. Sorry for that. Even McDonald's used to give me water. Now they charge cup also like 25 cents. So nothing is free now.
No, I mean, I know an additional, you pay a budget, but if you get this service and you have to pay.
Yeah, so there is a cost associated, which is administrative cost, which is not going to be huge. But as you are moving around, right, the main cost you are paying from S3. So S3 has a storage class. Speak with me. Storage class in easy language, car has a different type of model, right? XT model, LE model, SXT model, yes or no? Same thing, S3 has a different type of packages. If you put in standard, read and write faster. If read and write faster, what about latency? Latency is high or low? Low, because if you are reading faster, latency is low. So if latency is low, cost is high. So if you put in a glacier, latency is high or low? High, very high. Glacier.
Yeah.
If you put in a glacier, latency will be very high. Why? Because you have to wait for 2-3 hours to get the object. The cost goes significantly down. Make sense? So you are paying for performance. You're paying for performance. Now, these concepts they call intelligent tiering. Speak with me. Intelligent tiering. So if you provide intelligent tiering, AWS will manage everything for you. So lifecycle management and intelligent tiering you don't have to worry about standard, infrequent, or glacier. Who take care? AWS take care. Now there is another one they are using called reduce redundancy. Reduce Redundancy. This is the question normally they ask, which is very awkward question because it's not easily available. Reduce redundancy. If somebody says reduce redundancy, what is redundancy means? Redundancy, what does it mean?
Duplicacy.
Duplication. Duplication. So redundancy means duplication. And if you say reduce redundancy, what does it mean? You say don't do duplication. Because S3, listen carefully. S3 has a 4.9 for availability. How many 9? 4.9 for availability. And 11 nines for durability. Yes or no? But if you say reduce redundancy, what they say, I don't need 11.9. Just give me 4.9. So you are reducing durability. So Amazon make it cheaper for you. Reduce redundancy means I say, don't worry about it. Don't try to make duplication. I don't need duplication. I can create my own data. I know I can create my data. Why you need to do 11 nines? I don't need those mission critical. In that case, Amazon will give you cheaper price. Make sense? So there will be a question, when should you use redundancy, reduce redundancy? What use cases would you use reduce redundancy? No, use case. So like example, you are doing data crunching, right? And you have two types of data, source, and then you created data, which is reports and other things. Source and created data, right? So created data, you can put as a reduced redundancy. Why? Because you are having a source safe. So if something happens, you can recreate it. Make sense or no? So if you have original source and from there you are creating or deriving some data, you know that if something happens, it's not end of the world, I can recreate, then you should put it reduce redundancy, it will reduce the cost. Make sense or no? So these are the different ways Amazon give you transparent pricing. Would you put all the time storage data in a storage? That's a starting point. Starting point goes always in S3, and then it will go to Glacier. Glacier itself is not a service. Listen carefully. Glacier itself is not a service, but in exam they sometimes use as a service. It is a storage class. It is a storage class, is a part of S3. It's the cheapest one, however, highest latency. Clear? Okay. Now come back here. Now you can go here. There are two options available. Here, object ownership. Please pay attention. These are very awkward scenario. Sometimes it will be a little difficult to understand. So ACL stands for access control list. Access control list. What does that mean? Access, control, and a list. What does it mean?
Who can
Permissions, right?
access it? Who
Yeah,
can
you
use it?
know who access what they can access, right? Access control means you kind of manage it, right? Because you don't want anybody to access anything. So by default, cloud follow DD, right? Deny, default, deny, right? Deny by default. So we are going to use ACL. Access control, we're going to use it. Now if you scroll down, there is a concept called, this will be a question in your exam, block public access. By default, S3 access is blocked by world, means you cannot allow anyone from world to come and access your object. No one will know. Matter of fact, you will not be able to access it. You will only be able to access with certain ways. So no one will be able to access if you make block all public access. What does it mean? Means secure. So by default, S3 is secure. It does also give you encryption capability. So data, when it is rest, so there is a concept called data is in motion and data is in rest, right? Data in a rest, it's all encrypted. So data is in motion and data is rest. It encryption means no one can see what did you write. So it's a kind of safety net, right? So we'll keep this one. Remember this thing because you will be using tonight this thing more. Okay, remember this thing, we block it. So when you block, you're blocking bucket. Entire bucket is secure right now. Make sense? Now, if you want to unblock that, then you need some kind of policy. We talked about last class, if you remember, IAM policy, right? Some JSON. So tonight we'll use it. So that's why I'm teaching in a logical form, right? I taught it because tonight we'll use it. So that's why we will be using it. So we will be, if I make a block, no one can access it. But if I want to make it accessible, then I can have a public policy. And I'll talk about the policy in a few minutes. Now move down and check it here, version management. Now, why version management is important? So if company is using document management, many of you might have worked in the industry, and industry has a very simple rule to store the document, and they store document with some laws. So example, if you are working for education industry, the data should be stored for minimum 3 years. If you work on healthcare, do you know healthcare? What is the standard?
10 years.
It's a 20 years. There's a movie I would highly recommend. Watch that movie. The day they came up with this, what do you call, retention period? Speak with me. Retention period. There was a movie published. Very good movie, Conviction. I would highly recommend it. A little bit vulgar, but I would highly recommend that if you like that type of movie. It's a very good movie, Conviction. That movie was explaining how healthcare changed the rule. That movie came after the rule. The rule was that initially it was 10 years, and that healthcare standards say now you need to keep the data, patient's data, for 20 years. I don't want to give too much detail, but in movie they explain that the person has, like, what you call, person did not commit the crime, but somehow because of all the politics and all kind of evidence, he become a guilty. Now, brother is now in a jail, and now sister is crying to lawyer. You know how lawyer works here, right? They take all your money and nothing happened, right? So this lady cry, nothing happened. What is the movie title? Conviction. So the lady was convicted that my brother is not guilty. Now that lady was working as a bartender and all, doesn't have money, doesn't even have study, not even have college. So she started studying nighttime, associate degree. She's begging to the lawyer, doesn't happen. She become a bachelor. She begging to lawyer, nothing happened. She become a lawyer. She's begging, nothing happened. She become now lawyer, and she go and fight for her brother. And that time, judge asks, where is the evidence? The guy says, oh, we remove all evidence. The lady bring the newspaper and say, look at that. The legal law that you have to keep patients and others are 10 years. And because of the law, they had to give. So evidence was there. And based on evidence, it is a true story, by the way. The brother come out. What I'm trying to say, you need to understand the law, which one you're using. So that is the retention, and that's why versioning is extremely important. Because if you don't do versioning, you can accidentally somehow make a change which you may not know. So it's always a good idea to enable versioning. So let's do versioning. There will be a question in your interview. When you enable versioning, what happened behind the scene? Listen carefully. So this is your bucket, and you're entering file. So you enter file, let's say file is F1, that's a file 1, right? Now, again, you enter file with the new change. So something you made a change. So let's say example, you made a change. So you made a change 1, something you made, add or remove. So now again, the file name is still same. So what S3 does, it creates a timestamp. It creates a timestamp with the file. So it knows what is the recent change. Every file has a timestamp. Through timestamp, it makes unique version. Timestamp. So it maintains the timestamp. Through timestamp, it knows the newer file, unique step, and you can always get the latest data. Listen carefully. So when you say, hey, get me the file F1, you will always get latest by default. But there are versions are there, and if you want that, you can specifically provide version. I need this version file, and you can get that version data also. Make sense? By default, it gives you latest data, but you can always go back and get the. If you say give me all, then you can get all the data. Those are called API. Speak with me.
API.
Those API. Whenever I say API, is nothing but S3 web services. S3 web services, and those are exposed as API. A stands for application, P stands for programming, I stands for interface. Application, programming, interface, nothing but web service. How many words? 4 words. So get is not just a get, but you can say get latest, get me version this, get me all. So get itself has a many options. Who exposed those web services? Who exposed those web services? Who exposed? AWS. AWS gives you those opportunities. So if you want all, you can call all. If you want latest, you want latest. Everything AWS offers to you. Sounds good? So this way you have opportunity to do whatever you want. Make sense? Now moving along. As you go further, they will ask question how you manage the encryption key. So you can see encryption key AWS manages default, but you can also use SSA managed one also. I normally use AWS managed. So by default is fine. Now we are not using any specific way, so we can use bucket key by default is KMS. We're gonna use it. This kind of detailed question they ask in exam. Okay, so if you are not seeing those kind of things, it would be difficult for you. They may say what is default. They may ask kind of what kind of encryption key you have. So make sure you, when you do the lab, see those options also. Okay, now congratulations, create your bucket, first bucket of the world, and boom, create a bucket. If you are lucky, the bucket will be created, right? So let's see.
But there is a problem, you didn't ask for the size.
No, he doesn't ask size. It is 0 to 5 terabytes. So you have enough to store. It doesn't ask you size. So bucket is created. Bucket is nothing but a folder. In folder, you don't have size, right? It's just a logical grouping. Object will have a file. File will have a size, right? Bucket is just a folder. Once you create a bucket, now search your bucket here, Tom. In your case, whatever you have. So this is my bucket, which I just created. Do you have your bucket? Now, if you read carefully, you will have a bucket and objects not public. Why? Because we have blocked it. Sounds good or no? We block that. So by default, it is secure. Clear so far? Okay. Now click on the bucket so you can go inside. There are so many things we're going to learn in next 1 hour. There are so many things we're going to access here. Okay. Navigation is important. So when you are moving around mouse, make sure you understand it, because sometimes you may ask, what did you do? I may not be able to move because my skin might have updated version. So it's important that you follow. Now, right now, bucket is created, but we have 0 object. Do you guys agree or not? Now, why don't you create a small file using Notepad? So you can search Notepad, click on Notepad, search Notepad, and write something. And you can write here something like S3 is fun. Write something. And then this file which you have, store it. I'm going to save it in a download folder. So I'm going to store in a download folder. And I'm going to give a name, any name you can give. So I'm going to give hello. So this is my file, hello. I stored this file as a hello.txt under download folder. So store your file, save. So go to file, save as or save. Select the download folder. And in download folder, I store the file as a hello.txt. Make sense? Make sure you write something in that. I wrote S3 is fun. Good so far? Now we are going to see, we created a bucket was a piece of cake. Yes or no? Now we are going to transfer this object from my Windows machine to the cloud. So what we are trying to do here is, we have cloud in S3, I have storage in cloud, and that is, I have created a bucket here. And from my Windows machine, this is my Windows machine. From my Windows machine, I'm going to transfer this file to this bucket. Make sense? So let's do it. So in order to do so, I'm going to minimize my browser a little bit so I can see my both window clearly. So I'm going to minimize my browser and I'm going to drag here. Check it out. I'm going to drag this file, which is my hello.txt. I'm going to drag and I'm going to drop here. Drag and drop. Drag and drop. So when I drag and drop, the file will be moved here, right? And if you see here, I get upload. I got upload. Now you can see here, permissions wise, this bucket has the bucket owner and frost, right? So I cannot do much. And specify the storage class. Remember we talk about that. The storage class is right now, the storage class, they have given options. Did we talk about it a few minutes back, right? There are different storage classes. There's standard, they explain here. right? The availability zone, they use 3. Intelligent tiering, we talk about, there are different also. Glacier we talk about, and there is a redundancy also, you will see here, reduce redundancy, right? Now, they also have life cycle. So if you keep this for 30 days, if you don't use, it automatically move here. If you're done intelligent tier or life cycle management, so automatically does here. This is also a configurable parameter. So you can configure, instead of 30 days, you can say no, 10 days. If I don't use it, move like that. So you can optimize your cost also. Again, right now we are not going to do any of them. So we'll keep it like a standard. So let me minimize. So I didn't change any of them. I did not change any of them. I'm just going to do upload. So when I upload, the hello.txt will show up in my object. And if you are able to do that, I would say congratulations, you just completed step number 2. Now your object in your bucket, right? I'm going to close out this X, the green part. So you can see I have now this is my object, sorry, my bucket, my mistake. This is my bucket and this is my object. Can I count everyone is able to do? Right? Yes or no? Now let's do one more time. Now change your file and just write a little bit thing. Write another line. This is a second line. Something you write it. So I'm writing this line in my Windows machine, right? I'm going to save it. So you can see here, I wrote this first line, first time. Now I made a change. Now I will go back to, I minimize a little bit my browser. Now I have file here, hello.txt, because I saved it with the new line. So I have 2 lines right now. I save it. So make sure I save this. Once I save that, now I'm going to use this file, drag and drop. Drag and drop. No, I didn't drag and drop properly. So let me go here. Let me click on the bucket first. My mistake. Click on the bucket here. Click on bucket. So it gives you upload options. So click on the bucket. So now you have this one. Now I'm going to do drag and drop. So you can see how it gives me upload options. Now, if I save this thing, let me make it bigger. And if I upload it, so how many times I uploaded? 2 times. So how many versions should I have? 2. So now let's go to bucket. So this is the bucket. Navigation is sometimes a little bit bad. So make sure you follow the navigation correctly, because there are so many movements we will be doing tonight, right? Once you're comfortable, it will be a piece of cake. So now if I click on that, I see my hello.txt. How many files I have? Only 1, right? And it maintains the last timestamp. Okay. Now you can see here this option perspective. If you see here, this option perspective, this is my object. Now I want to access this thing. So please understand, right now we are in cloud. When I use console, I'm already in a cloud. So from console, I can access it. No problem. But S3 is here. S3 is here and my objects bucket is here. But if I'm, let's say, in Chicago, so from Chicago, if I want to try to access this bucket, I need to go through public internet. Yes or no? And when I go to public internet, it won't work. Why would it not work? Because I have denied DD, right? Denied by default. So let's see how it works. And then we'll discuss about version management and all. So now let's click on the object. So when you click on object, you will see a lot of other options and you will see one URL. Say yes.
Yeah.
Right. And this URL, if you click on this URL, it will say access denied. Say yes. Yes or no? Yeah. So this is what I wanted to show you, that every time when you create an object, if the bucket itself is secure, all objects are secure. Make sense? Right now, no one can access this file. Even you cannot access, right? You can only access through console. So what should we do? We have to change the permission. But because I have selected ACL, I need to give a policy, specific policy to enable that. I'll cover that in a few minutes. Any questions so far? Now, you might notice that one thing, I will go click on the back. Please click on the back arrow. So when you click on back arrow, you will go there. I want you to realize this thing. What is this one? What is this one? This is called URL. Now, please pay attention. This is a very profound thing. This URL is actually GET URL. Remember we talked about 4 words? Remember we talked about? So this is the GET URL. So by default, S3 expose each and every object as a REST URL, and the REST URL is by default is a GET. So it is by default S3 all objects are accessible by REST URL, because S3 by default gives you web server URL. What is web server? Just like you do google.com. So by default, bucket become a bucket, your bucket become a domain. Bucket becomes a domain. Make sure you understand, this is very important. Bucket become a domain. So like google.com. See, you can see that my bucket become a domain. Amazon added a prefix, so suffix, but it created a domain. An object becomes part of the domain, which is the URL, uniform resource locator. And because of that, now if I have a movie, if my friends want to see, I give you this URL, they should be able to see that. But right now that object is protected, so they cannot see that. Make sense? Every object by default is accessible through web URL. So there is a web URL. S3 by default exposes a REST URL, so you don't have to have web server or app server, anything. It gives you by default internal web server. So far so good. Second, by default, every S3 object has ARN, Amazon Resource Naming, unique name. So you can give specific permission for certain file to allow and certain object not to allow. If you think all objects start with hello, allow, otherwise don't allow, you can do so. So you can have prefix-based permissions, or you can say bucket-based permissions, or you can say time-based permissions, you can do location-based permissions, you can do all kind of interesting permissions. But if you want to do that, you need a policy. And in policy, there's a concept called condition. Speak with me. If you want condition, then you can say people can only access this URL on Monday. People can access this URL from this IP address. People can access this URL from this time and this time only. People can access this URL if they have MFA. They access the URL which so those kind of conditions you can do. Again, in exam they will not ask, but condition is the part of the policy. I'm going to show you that. Sounds good? Any questions so far? So we have talked about that. Now, one thing I want to make sure you understand, click on the version. And you should see 2 files. One with 1 line and the second with the 2 lines. Let's click on the version. And do you see 2 files? Say yes. Yes or no? And it does maintain the timeline. Now by default, you can see here their storage class is standard. Now if you click on this is your current version. See, this is the current version, right? And this is the old. So if you click on that, what it is showing? So here, this is the old file, but right now if I click, I will still have error because I will not be able to access it. Why? Because by default I'm using public URL. This is the URL, but it is a public URL. This is domain, and this is the URL part of that. It gives me version. The version comes with the timestamp. So how do I make it accessible? That's $1 million question. Good news, so simple. Now the reason, because we are in training class, I'll make it tiny policy, very tiny policy. But in the real life, policy can be much more stronger. That's why I humbly request that you learn CLI and you learn policy. Policy means JSON file. If you know JSON file and if you know CLI, then you can do the magic. Real life, people don't use console. I will be honest with you, because security is the biggest concern. If somebody gets your username and password, they can hijack your cloud setup. So that's the reason people don't use. So how do I create a policy? So in your Google class, I added a link here. So if you go in a Google class, under PowerPoint, I added a small policies. I added a policy as an example. and I added a link here. So I'm going to click on this link just for your knowledge purpose. There are so much things you can do, but because of limited time, we cannot spend time because S3 itself is a very beautiful service. But I just want to show you, AWS document is amazing. So you can see here, the question is, how can I grant public read access to some object in my S3? You guys can read about, that's why I put that thing. But I'm going to show you something. These are CLI. All are CLI. Do you guys agree? And most companies use CLI only, right? But how the policy works. So this is what I want you to understand. This is the anything date. Doesn't matter which date you select. Effect allow. Allow means you're giving grant. If you say deny, means you're taking grant. Principal star means all object. And remember, we talk about 4 words. So here we are talking get. So means you are giving read permissions. Remember, we talk about ARN. So this is your ARN, where the first is the bucket, and star means all objects. Now you are saying condition. Remember, we talk about that IP address, day, and all. Here you can add conditions. You can make it fine-grained, very detailed way, this kind of permissions thing. Again, for time being, we're going to do easy one. So what I have done here, I have created permission here before the class. I was playing around. So I created that. I'll put it in a Google class, but I want to make sure before I give you, see here, this is the date. Any date can be fine. Public read, allow this, and you should not have problem. Now here, we need to change our bucket name. Would you be able to change your bucket name? Do you know your bucket name? Perfect. So let me show you just quickly. Then I'll give you opportunity. I'll put it in a Google class so you will have access to that. I'll do back arrow. I'll go to back arrow so I can see my objects bucket. So I go to back arrow. So I'm back to business, and I need to have my bucket name. So my bucket name is visible here. You can see here I have bucket name visible. I can pick it from here. So I'm going to pick it the bucket name. So this is my bucket name. See how I change only one line and I'm done. And this is my bucket name. Please pay attention. This is my bucket name, like that. That's all. So what I'm saying, and if I read in English, this is JSON start. This is JSON end. This is the key. This is the value. This is the key, and this is the bunch of value. When you see rectangle, it's a bunch of value. And then there's a key and value. I didn't change this thing. I only changed this. If I want to make condition based, I need to add another block here, condition, right? I give you something as a homework. You will be able to try that. But this is the simplest, what do you call, permission. I'm going to copy this thing and see here for step. Because if you ask me, hey, what did you do? I may not be able to go back and forth. Let me show you. Okay, ready? I'm going to click on a bucket. Let me click here. Sorry, my mistake. I'm going to click on here. Okay, ready? So I'm going to click on that. So when I click on that, I will have option called permissions. So I'll click on permissions. So if I click on permissions, I need to do edit. Make sense or no? So when I edit, first I need to remove those block. That's the first step. I remove the block. I need save. It is. Are you sure you are making it public? I said confirm. Yes. So confirm. So I put, okay, that's first step. In your second thing, bucket policy. I'm going to do edit. And now I can paste it here, like that, the things which I have, right? I'm making all public, which is bad thing. But in a real life, you would put restricted. Make sense? Huh? You can say hello only, particular thing only, which you want to make it public, right? Now I'm going to do save changes. Make sense? So what I did is, see, now it's crying. Are you making public? Public? Like that, right? So I'm in a bucket. I'm in a bucket. I did a permissions. I did a unblock this and I add a permissions. Now let me go to object. And if I click on hello, I'll go to the URL. It should work. Make sense? S3 fun is that. So this is my second file. Make sense? So let me give you this policy, and let's see if you can do it. Otherwise, I'll repeat again, making sure you have that permissions available. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add, listen carefully. I am going to remove this one and going to add a new permission. So that way you just need to refresh your Google class as soon as I save it. Okay. Save it. Now you refresh your Google class. It is under PowerPoint and your bucket policy is there. See if you can try it and use it. Make sure you change your bucket name. Give me Tada if you are able to do it.
You put it in chat.
Oh, yeah, I can do it, chat. Yeah, perfect. Chat. So chat is here. Yeah, perfect. Good. Awesome. Very nice. Just refresh the Google class. It's in S3 under PowerPoint. In case if you need help, you just need to go to your what you call object, sorry, bucket. Under bucket, go to permissions, right? So click on the bucket, go to permissions, and make sure you edit first this thing. Step 1 is editing this thing, and uncheck that, uncheck the block, uncheck the block. Sorry, it worked. Very nice. Uncheck the block and then edit the policy. Edit the policy, which is second step. Edit the policy. So second step is edit policy and plug it in and save it. Ta-da! Awesome. Now this is really good that you guys are doing great. And to be honest with you, this is kind of thing make interesting because labs are working, things are moving very well. The way AWS has designed, it made it simple for everyone to use it, and that's what the goal of the exercise. Yes, sir.
So why do you find coding like this and AWS
Mhm,
interface?
mhm.
So how we create users and other EC2 interface. Why they couldn't have this multiple choices? They're how to
Yeah.
rather than coding.
Yeah, very good. So they have a template designer for policy. So you can design this thing in template.
Oh.
So you can design, they have template designer for policy. You can do it, but because it's available mostly, just need to change here and there. You don't want to go through like entire flow. You can do power user. So I'm a power user. So I know JSON, I can modify, but otherwise there is a template designer. You can do step 1, step 2, step 3, and you can create this kind of policy. The policy designer is there. Good. Everyone is doing good so far. Remember, I'm recording the sessions. Once everything is done, I'll give you recording. Goal of the exercise, you do this thing now if you can. If not, you can watch recording also.
Does it have the ability to plan if there's anything wrong in the policy?
Oh, yeah, it will let it out. Yeah. So it doesn't allow certain things like there is a validation happening. They call policy validations. So it won't work.
Yeah, because now it's successfully added. But I'm just thinking that if there is an error.
Yeah, let's try it out. Let's do nothing wrong. And let's say I'm missing the curly bracket, right? Let's say, sorry, this bucket has been owner this enforced setting. Let me do edit. Oh no, this one is different. Sorry for that. I wanted to try it out because you are bringing a very good point, right? So I'll say edit. And
let's change.
Let's say I use something called statement instead of let's say 1, 2, 3, right? And I did like the curly bracket remove. Okay. See, this is what I was talking about. See, look at that, right? So syntax, right? Control Z. So now syntax is gone. Now we can say add new statement. So this is like say select existing statement in policy or add a new statement. So if you do add new statement, it can allow you that this is the way you can make a policy. You can see. So you can add, you can remove. Make sense on?
Okay.
So you can, yeah. So as you click on that, as you click it keep adding those things. So it's kind of,
Yeah, it does that. So I assume they have the ability to validate.
Oh, yeah.
Too, right?
yeah,
If I
because
put the wrong
this is
bucket.
the grammar. This is the grammar. So definitely you cannot just do this because it's a grammar, right? Okay, so right now it's 8:01. I want to still cover one or two things and then we'll take a break. So let me jump into my slide. We have a lot to cover, so stay tuned. Now we completed up to this. Now let's set the stone before we take a break. After break, I want to create a website, tiny website. I know you guys are smart. You will be able to do web pages. So what we're gonna do? Let's after break. So people will be super excited, right? The movie. What we're gonna learn after the break, right? So after the break, we will create another bucket. Listen carefully. We can use the same bucket, but we can create another bucket. After break, we're going to create another bucket. Listen carefully. Please pay attention. After break, we're going to create a new bucket. And that bucket will say, this is my static web hosting. Static web hosting. What does that mean? It means this bucket becomes my web server. Sorry, my website. And inside that, I will create a two web page. One is index.html and then second I will create an error.html. Make sense or not? Index.html means if somebody accesses my URL, remember by default bucket and everything will give me the URL. So if somebody accesses this bucket, it will automatically access the index.html. So I will see my page, web page. Make sense? So think about like Google. Please pay attention. I write google.com. I'm actually write google.com, but it automatically accesses the first page, which is this page. Do you agree? So this is the index.html. And if I write here, let's say example, xyz.com, xyz, and if I press enter, this is called error.html. So this google.com is our bucket. And this inside that we're going to create two files, index.html, which is called default web page, and xyz, which is nothing but this error page. So we're going to create a tiny page, how website works. You can put like lots of pages in there and create your own static website. Most people do that because it's going to cost you hardly maybe few dollars a year. If you use a GoDaddy, it's going to cost you $12 to $14 per day, sorry, per month. So overall, it will cost you $100 plus. Here it will cost you maybe $4 or $5 a year, and you can do a business. So example, my friend also you were mentioning, right? You can have 5 friends who are doing business. I can create a website. Just give me $10 per month. It will cost you only $2, and you are now making $100, right? And you have 5 friends, means $500, and you provide support. So for support, you charge $30, $40. So now you can create a website. You have become a hosting provider, just like Google, GoDaddy. Given this is the static website, no dynamic content, but static website works for most of the business. If it's a mom and pop, smaller business, couple of pages should not take more time, and it will not cost you more. So that's why we can do that. So after break, we're going to do the website development a little bit. I'm not going to make you web developer. Then we'll also do redirect. We'll do redirect. Listen carefully. Redirect means. So if you see here, I'm typing here infotechguide.com. Check it out. What am I typing here? Infotechguide.com. And when I press enter, what happens? Check it out. What happens here? What happens? It is from hot.com, it become a .net. Now let me show you another thing. training.com. What am I typing here? training.com. Make sense or not? And see what happens. Pretty smart, huh? Because those who do not know Iowa, I have to take a domain, and the domain I map it with S3, so it redirect here. So I'll show you that after break. So that's the second thing we're going to cover. Another thing we want to cover is called replication. Replication means we'll create a bucket. Listen carefully. We'll create a bucket, maybe East region, and then we'll replicate to Mumbai. And once we do 5 objects here, after 15 minutes, that's what AWS says, but actually it's less than a minute. These objects, whatever I add here, will automatically come to Mumbai. That will do replications. And then I'll show you LCM, lifecycle management, just to show you how to do that. So I have 4 or 5 things to do, and then similar thing you will do for the homework. So it's still 1 hour plus things I need to cover. So let's take a break. We have a lot to cover, so don't disappear, okay? We'll take a 10 minutes break, and after 10 minutes, we'll be back. The people on phone, don't disappear. We'll be back in 10 minutes.
my account. I'm asking for my MFA. I'm gonna reset the whole.
Okay, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. People on the phone, welcome back. Am I recording or not? Was sharing? No. Okay, recording. What happened with this guy? Huh? No, but it's it's not going away. I found a bug. Hmm. Let me do one thing. Stop sharing and start sharing. Maybe that will help. Sharing part. I'll stop for sharing. Okay. Perfect. Now start again. For some reason, my internet cable came out. That's why it's wireless. Okay, so I'm going to share again. This time. Oops. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so let's begin. People on phone, I'm hoping you are able to see this thing. So first thing, we're going to do step-by-step approach. So step 1, we talk about version and all. So now we're going to create a what we call a bucket. We'll create a public right away because you know you have like what you call our policy. We'll make it public right away. Then third, we'll create a static website, right? So static web hosting. Then fourth, once we create 2 pages, I'm going to give the page content. I'm going to give you page content so you don't have to type too much, but it has to be index.html page content. So when you save the file, you save the file with double quotation index.html. Then we'll create error.html. Like that, HTML or HTML doesn't matter. We'll see that. I have to see. I'll give you the content, right? Once we complete that, then we'll do redirect. So this is what I'm going to do exercise number 1, and then later exercise we'll do replication. So when we do replications, we already have this bucket. I think we can use this bucket as a source bucket. and we'll do target bucket in Mumbai, right? So we will open a another S3 and we'll create a bucket there, and we'll try to see if I add in a source bucket, which is this one. If I add a source bucket, right, some object, if I add objects, then these objects automatically should be populated here, right? So we'll try to do that. So 2-3 laps we need to do, and it may take a little while. If we are lucky, everything goes smooth. If not, it may take a while. Okay. So right now, I want you to create a bucket along with me, so you can understand how to create web hosting, right? Once we create a web hosting, then I'll give you file content, because I'm not sure how many of you know index.html and all. So I'll give you content, so at least you can start with that. If you know web HTML or website development, a little bit here and there, then you can do yourself. I'm not going to do crazy things, just few lines, so at least you understand how it works. So look back to business. We are in a S3. Click on a bucket. Click on a buckets. So we are in a main folder. Now this time we're going to create a bucket again, but this time we'll give a nice bucket. Make sense or no? So create a bucket, and we'll say this bucket, I'll say Tom, my website, something like that. You can write your name. Don't use this name because it will not work. This is a globally unique, right? So you can come up with something, your name and your website, so that way you know this is your bucket, right? Go down, keep it, everything is good. No, I'm going to make it public because you know that I need a public, so I'm going to uncheck that. You know what I'm doing, right? And I acknowledge that, right? Enable, no problem. So I will enable the versioning. Now you may check, I don't need that. Encryption, I don't need that. Bucket key, I don't need that. What is the advanced setting? Object log, I don't need any of them. That's fine. Okay. So what's the only thing I just did? Only few things. I just give a name, right? I give my bucket name, right? And then this was selected by default, and I uncheck this, making sure that's remain public. And I acknowledge that I know what I'm doing. That's pretty much it. And I enable versioning. Enable versioning. So at this moment, I think we're ready to create a bucket. If the name is unique, in my case, I'm lucky. The bucket name is unique. So it's created bucket Tom 5 minutes. I'm hoping that you are also able to create a bucket. Good. So I'm going to search it just to make sure my bucket is visible. So sorry for that. So I'll say Tom, and as soon as I type Tom, my bucket is visible. Clearly say that object can be public. Okay. No problem. Can I count everyone is with me so far?
Yeah.
Awesome. Now let's click on the bucket. So when you click on bucket, this time we are going to do properties. We're going to go to properties. Now in properties, there are many properties. We're going to talk about it just for knowledge purpose. So right now, bucket versioning is enabled, which is good. If you scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Intelligent tiering. Again, as we mentioned about that, if you want to configure that, then it's going to go through the journey. So I just want to show you, you don't have to do anything. I just want to show you what is this means. So if I do create configurations, it will be ask lifetime, limit the scope of the configuration using one or more filters. So basically it gives you timeline, how this files will follow from high cost to low cost tiering. Intelligent tiering means it will automatically move up and down, right? To save the cost. We are not doing anything. I just want to make sure if you want to do here, you can do here, and you can specify if you want to define that. Now, I'm going to come out. You don't have to do anything. So I'll go back. The most important thing we need to do is here, which is the, this one, the last one. This is the most important, static web hosting. Yeah. Now, just for your knowledge purpose, this web hosting is nothing but a folder. There is no change at all, but this folder will become as a document root of your website. So every website has document root, means if when you write google.com, the google.com is actually pointing to one machine with the IP address, and that IP address it comes to the virtual host where it points to physical folder on that machine. That's called document root. So every website in the world has document root. Document root means a folder from their web pages are served. So when you write google.com, you're actually saying go to that machine. And from that machine, it will point to the document root. From document root, it will pick up the page. So here, instead of document root, we are called static web hosting, which will act as a document root. So now we're going to click on edit. Make sure you follow the flow. Click on edit. There are so many clicks we need to do, but it will be fun. Click on edit. When you click on edit, we're going to enable that. As soon as we enable, it's going to say you have two options. You want to create your own websites or you want to do redirect requests. So first, I'm going to do redirect request because it's easy. It's easy. And then we'll do static web hosting. So I want to show you how easy it is. Okay. Many people don't know, but I work for companies, big companies where I used to be webmaster, where I used to do all those things. And I'm very blessed that I had an opportunity like that early stage when 2001, 2002.com, where we used to have various websites act as a one website. So we do redirect areas and all kind of forwarding and all I have learned. In case if you want to do mastery, you should just study about Apache web server, and there's only one file called httpd. That's all you need to know. httpd.conf, and entire life you can learn here because it doesn't take more time, maybe 2-3 days practice and you're good to go with web server concepts. You should know about it because if you're going for this kind of website or web hosting or cloud, you should know about web servers, web app server, database server, because it will increase your confidence because you will be doing that more often. Okay. So right now we're going to click on redirect request. So when I do redirect request, it is asking like, hey, tell me redirect to which domain. So like example, if somebody requests our bucket, where you want to redirect to. So I want to redirect to here. So example, it says a target bucket or website. So I'm going to redirect to Google. How about that? So if somebody accesses my site, I'll redirect to Google. Or I can redirect to ITExps, whichever website you want to do. So here, I want to redirect to ITExps because I want to do that. So I did ITExpert.com, ITExps.com. You can write Google.com, so Yahoo.com, CNN.com. Make sense? And the protocol we are using is HTTPS. So I'm going to click on HTTPS because this website which I'm using here is HTTPS. So I'll use that. Now I'm going to save it. So basically what I did is right now I enable redirect and it's going to ITExps, HTTPS, and I save it. Make sense? Ready? So when I save it, it's going to give me URL. Scroll down. Yeah, did you get it? So go all the way down and it gives me URL. And if you click on that, see what happens. Magic happens. 1, 2, 3, click on it. And it will take me to ITExpert.com. Congratulations. How easy it is. Give me thumbs up. Right? Now, when I was I don't want to tell you, but people will say, oh, wow, you're a genius. It takes hardly 1 minute. Right? Now you redirect. So when should we do that? So the problem is when we had, like example, when we have some maintenance window going on, what we do is certain segment which we don't want people to access because we are doing maintenance, we do redirect. If somebody access this, go to this server for time being. And once complete, we kind of fix that redirect. Pretty easy. So during maintenance time, it's very popular to redirect. So redirect to a particular page, like example, under construction, or we are working on it, or try after a couple of hours, like that kind of things. So you're done with redirect, which is piece of cake. Now let's go back again. We will do edit. So let's click on edit. This time we are saying no, we are going to host our website. We are not going to redirect. So we're going to click on static website, host static website. So now this time it is asking me that do you have two pages, index.html and error.html? Do you have these two pages? That's what it is asking. Now I don't have that page, so I need to create it. Make sense? Or not? And those pages I need to upload into my bucket. Do you guys agree or not? Because if I don't have this pages, it will error out. So I'm going to create a bucket, these pages from scratch for you, and I'll give you. So I'll put it in Google class. Again, use your imagination when you create a file. These are two files. Hello, these are two files. You need to see how I do it. It's a notepad. When many people, what they do, they just save it. If you just save normally, it will create a text file, not index.html. I really want your attention, okay? So it will help you. So HTML is called hypertext markup language. Again, it's a website development content. You don't need to be expert in that. Just understand that every website start with the two sections. I'm going to make with the simple section right now, body section, because header, there's no need to worry about header part for time being. So here, this is the body. Body is nothing but web page. And inside that, I'm going to write simple few things. H1, hello, Tom, right? This is my website title. It will, H1 means heading, right? And I can say, let's say mark you. This is one, right? And mark you complete. I'll say, let's say in a P, align, P means paragraph, align center. This is cool, right? Something like that. And that's good enough, right? So this is my index.html. Has a 3 command. Hello Tom, it will show up. This is fun, and this is center. Again, there are hundreds of HTML commands you learn in the part of web development, because we are not learning web development right now. So I'm going to say file. Listen here, file, save as, and you have to write in double quotation, because otherwise this text will add that. So you can do star first, and then in double quotation, I'll say index.html. Remember, first thing, all star, otherwise it will add txt. We don't want txt. And all in double quotation index.html, and you save it. So that is done. So that create a file index.html. I can double check it. And if I go through in our download folder, you will see internet logo. So you will see, if I go to download folder, you will see index.html. Yeah, this one. Do you see that? That shows that I am doing right thing. If you don't do it right, it will show this logo, which is called not paid logo. A not paid logo means you did not do right. Make sense? Now, this is ready. Now I'm going to save this file. I'm going to change a little bit, and I'm going to say, look at that. Oops. I'm going to say, oops, error, right? This is error page, like that. And this is not fun, right? This is not good. Let's do it like that, right? So this is my error page. I'm going to do file save as, and then here again, I'll start an instead of index.html. What am I going to do? Error.html. Normally I do in double quotation. Make sure it is saved as index.html, and you can see now both has this thing. Make sense or no? Now what I'm going to do, I want you to see it, and then you follow the steps. Okay, I created two files. I'm going to give you both files in a Google class with the heading, and you just need to cut and paste and then save as index.html, save as a error.html. But I have done it. Now what I'm doing here, please pay attention and see on the screen. So I will go back to first my vertical bucket. So I go to my bucket, and I will drag these two files. So I will drag index.html. Sorry, my mistake. I can hold control and copy both of them. Control, right? Through control, I can copy, click here and click here, and I can drag both of them. So it's upload. So both of them, I can see both of them came. You guys agree? Hold control, switch, click here and here, right? And then I can say upload. There is a button called upload. So right now I have two files, right? Please pay attention. If I try to access any of the file like this, I am going to get this type of, sorry, where did it go here? Yeah. So if I click on this one, I get a permission denied, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give this both as a, I will give a permission. So that way, remember how did I give a permission? I'll get a policy, right? So I'll go back to the object. I'll go back to objects, go to permissions, and we already made a public here, right? But I'm going to do policy, which I gave you. So policy wise, where is my policy? I thought I had policy ready. This one, right? So this is my policy, and my bucket name is in front of me here. So this is my bucket name. Sounds good or no? I just need to make this thing. Just need to make sure everything looks good. So that way, save this thing. So now it's going to be public. I'll go back to bucket. What is my bucket name was? I have copied. So yeah, I thought, here we go. And now if I click on index.html, I should be able to access that URL. So it's working. Look at that. Hello, Tom. This is fun. You guys agree or not? Now, goal of the exercise, I don't want to write index.html. And it should work this way. So if I remove index.html, right now I'm getting access denied. But my goal here is that it should show index.html. Okay. So I'm going to go back here. See here for a few seconds. It will help you to understand the complexity of this. So now I'll go back. Where is my AWS? I'll go back here. Oops. Where's my, okay, here we go. I close it, so I'll go back to S3. Sorry for that. So click on S3. I'll go back here. Just making sure I go back to my normal folder. I'll help you. Don't worry. First, I want to make sure you visualize it, so that way you can appreciate this aspect. So Tom website. Now I'm going to configure static web hosting, right? So I went to properties, and then I'll go all the way down. Make sense or no? And then edit. Okay. Now here I say host static website. Now I have page, right? Index.html. So I write down index.html. Right? And I have error also. So I'll write down error.html. I don't have to do anything and save it. Now, if you go down all the way, you will see URL. Now check it out. I did not type anything. Sorry, it's my redirect is still there. Did I have redirect? Now I need to go back to, did I have a redirect? I thought I changed it. Sometime it, cache it. No, it is, I changed it, see? So sometime it cache it, so it's confusing part. So to solve that problem, you have to close the browser. So rather than closing browser, I will use I, right? Because sometime it caches it. So I'm going to copy this thing. So I can copy it and I'm going to use I, because there I did not use this thing. So check it out. I'm writing just domain. If it shows index.html, then it take my changes. I press enter, index.html. Did you guys agree? You guys agree? Yes or no? And now if I write Nikhil, I should get error page, right? Because Nikhil is not the page in my website. Do you guys agree? And oops, pretty good. Yes or no? So it's working perfectly fine. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you step-by-step code. So this code which I'm showing you here, it's error.html. So let me give you code like this way, error.html. So that way you know this is the code, right? And I'll also give you code for index.html. So that way you also have that code sent to Open with. There is no open with. Open with is the source. Yes. I have to give you both. So I'll give you this, which is index.html. Am I right? So this is index.html. This is the 2-page. I'm going to add in a Google Class for you guys. So you will get right away notifications. Bear with me for a second. And here you go. I'm going to create material and web pages. So first thing, what you're going to do, you're going to take these, don't copy this part, copy this part and save as index.html. Copy this part, save as error.html, and make sure you give a bucket, a policy, public policy, and then you can start working. Let's see if you can do it. If you need help, I'm going to help you also. Okay. Try it out. I'm pretty positive you will be able to do, but if you need help, I'm here to help. Sorry. If you are already in Google Class, just refresh it. So I'll start writing step here. So create index.html and error.html, right? Then B, drag and drop both about HTML pages to your folder. C, edit bucket policy and make it public. D, go to bucket and property, go all the way down and edit static hosting, right? E, select static hosting. F, write index.html. G, write error.html and save it. Go all the way down, copy the URL and paste it to I. See the web page shows up. Then after domain, type Kevin and oops, should show. Right?
Show me the first.
Did you create these pages? This is the first step. I gave you, right, those files in Google Class.
Yeah, I have that.
You create this page. How do you create page? Notepad, right? Just Notepad. Remember we did that. This file and this file we create, right? File save as. Remember we did.
Yes.
Sorry. Then you drag and drop this file into bucket. That's what the second step, right? First, you have to create these two files. Step first is this create two files, right? Making sure these two files are created. That's the first step. Makes sense or not? The second step is drag and drop above HTML pages to your folder, which is your bucket, right? So here I'll show you. Here you go. So you can see I drag and drop these two files. These two files are here. Drag and drop. Yes or no? Once you drag and drop, the second thing is you go to permissions, right? Seems like Viral is done. Good. So go to permission, change the bucket policy, edit. Remember we have been doing that. The bucket policy, make sure you have your bucket name, which we use. I added in a PowerPoint. Remember that we use in a PowerPoint, there is a section. Use the bucket list here. So that way you can do that. Good. Once you do that, and then everything is simple. Then go to property file, select hosting, write this, save it all the way down, copy the URL. You guys will be doing homework along with your team. So the same way, the way you are doing group homework, make sure you meet and do similar exercise will do, but you'll do much more interesting because you will have extra time.
So in order to lower, like, how it is showing like a bucket name,
Mhm.
S3,
Mhm.
we and if we had our own domain,
Yeah, you can do that.
then it will follow the.
You can do that, yeah. Yeah, I have done it. And that is YOR training, which I was showing, right? But I have not covered Route 53. When I cover Route 53, that time I'll show you. Because in Route 53 through, you can register your domain, and then domain will point to the S3. So I have my registered domain called YOR training. And that YOR training is pointing to the YOR S3 bucket. Let me just show you. So here I have a bucket here called YOR training, but it looks like a bucket. Let me show you. So you will see. Search for. Okay, here we go. So you can see YOR training. So you can see here I have two things: YOR training and YOR training. But these are bucket. But magic is if I search here, check it out. What happens? These are my own domain. So if I press enter, it works like a website. Check it out. So it's going to point to ITExps. I'm not using the suffix, right? AWS now, because I registered the domain in Route 53, and I say, hey, if somebody access, go to this site, which is static hosting, which is our S3, and from there I did redirect. I'll show you when we do Route 53.
And now the other follow-up question, like, how would we know how much they're charging right now?
They don't charge you. If you want,
in case if
yeah, that's the calculator. Remember calculator? We started, if you do AWS calculator, AWS service calculator, right? Cost calculator, you can see yourself. We are using S3, so I'm going to do S3 calculator, and you can put S3 here. So create estimate. They don't charge at all, man. They don't charge at all. So you can see region, service, all service location type, and find service to S3, right? And I'm using simple storage service, and I'll say configure. They're going to ask me what you want actually, right? So example standard I'm using, right? If you want to use Glacier, you can configure it. And the Giga, gigabyte per month. So standard we are not even using gigabyte.
One more, yeah.
We are not even using gigabyte, so I'm going to use 0.5, 0.05. Means we are using kilobyte, right? Now you can see here, that's the gigabyte. How will data be moved to S3? No need. Footer case, no. Get only. Now monthly number of get requests, let's say 10, right? So you can see there's still $0. Make sense or no?
Yeah, I think they offer up to with the trial version 5 GB per year.
Yeah, so they are not going to charge you too much unless you use terabytes of expense, storage. Then they will charge you. And if you do millions of requests, then they will charge you maybe a few dollars. That's why I use more often this thing because it's so reasonable.
I think they give you like 1 million impression for free.
Yeah. So our side who's going to access 1 million times, right? Okay. So I'm hoping you are all are doing good. In case if you have a problem, I can happy to answer, but I also want to do replication because that is also important part. Just want to make sure the steps are well documented. I give you the code. First, you create these files, then you drag and drop, right? Then you edit the bucket policy, make it public. Go to bucket property and go all the way and create a static, and then select static hosting, that option, right? Select setting option, right? Index.html in the options, error.html, save it, and then when you go, you get the URL and paste the URL in the browser, and it should work, right? Try it, and I have done this, so you have recording available. Now, the last thing which we need to do is called replication. So in order for us to do replications, it's also in a property. So before we do replicate, we need to create another folder, another bucket in different region. So we create it upfront, right? So what I normally do it, if I'm in S3 right now and I'm S3, I copy this URL. Please pay attention. We are kind of replicating. Please pay attention. Where East US, from there we're going to replicate to Mumbai, which is India, right? So we're going to replicate. Why would you replicate? Because your customer base here and your customer is here. So if you want to do that, that's replication is important, right? So replication allows you same copy data, and you don't have to do any manual operation. So I copy this URL. You can do also along with me. Copy this URL where you have S3 bucket. Copy this URL and then paste here in a plus new tab. So one tab it will do for Mumbai and one for East US. So this is for Mumbai. So I have one S3 which is for East. So I have East here, and I'm going to do here from Mumbai. Okay, because it will allow me to easily toggle. So that's the reason I'm going to do the toggle part, because otherwise it's unnecessary. I have to do, it will confuse it, right? So I'm here. So now here I'm going to create a bucket, a specific name in Mumbai. Ready? So let's create a bucket. Follow the steps. Create a bucket, and my bucket name will be, I'll again use Tom destination Mumbai, right? I'm using something like that. You use your name, so that way you can easily understand. Tom destination Mumbai. I'm using it, and then here we need to select Mumbai somehow, right? So that way the bucket will be created under that specific thing. So it allows me Mumbai, right? This one, I select that. So select that. This has to be unique, and I'm sure this might be unique. And this is the destinations region. Good. Okay. Now we can go further, and we'll try to we'll not give any permission. We'll see without permissions how it works, right? So here we are blocking all, just like bit default. The only thing we'll do version enable. Make sense? Or no? I'm blocking everything, version enable, and I'm done. I am done. So let me repeat one more time, making sure you understand. You have a bucket name and your region. And then the only thing I enable is the versioning, because when you do replication, it's always a good idea to have versioning, because otherwise you will overwrite the content, right? And S3 does not overwrite, so you will not be able to do it. So versioning is important. Now, create bucket. So right now, you know that I have created brand new bucket in Mumbai, has no content. Do you guys agree or not? So bucket is created. So I have already bucket in East, and I'm trying to see if I can replicate those two files. Remember, we had two files, index.html and all. If I can replicate, then setup is completely fine. If I add another file, then that also should replicate. AWS says that if you do basic plan, then it takes around 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes, it will replicate, but it does replicate in less than 1 or 2 minutes. So this was Mumbai tab. Now go back to your East, this tab, which is the US East. So click on it. So here our main, which is called source bucket, right? So I'm going to use our source bucket, which was my Tom website, right? Tom, this is my source bucket, right? Here, this is my source bucket. So I'm going to click on it. So I'm in my source bucket at this moment. Good so far? Now, I'll go to properties and see if you can help me to find replicate.
Question. What
So-
do you mean by source code?
Just which one, where I'm going to add the file. Source means where I will add a file. Anything, you have two types, right? If I'm doing copy, I have to have original in order to copy. Yes or no? How you do copy? Like if you want to do Xerox, you need a one page, right? That's your source page. And when you make a Xerox, that's called your target. So Xerox will be Mumbai and source will be your bucket. It can be any bucket, right? It doesn't need to be this bucket. It can be any bucket, right? It doesn't need to be static web hosting, right? It can be any bucket. So in a property, if you see anywhere replication, so I see transfer explorations, object log, requester page. I don't have here, so let me see in management. There's somewhere it should be there. Not here. This is LCM. Yeah, here you go. So you can see management has LCM, which we talk about lifecycle management. Remember, we talk about that it will move to different tier lifecycle. You can specify. I'll show you later on. But right now, let's talk about replication. In 2 minutes, we'll be done. Okay, replications. Ready? See, you just need a two bucket. You need a two bucket. You pretend this is the first bucket. It's a source. You pretend this is the second bucket. It means target. There's no special aspect. Here you will add a file because it's a source, and automatically the file will be available here. That's pretty much you want to try. That's called replication. So replication means copy, but it is auto copy. You are not going to do any manual operations, right? So now we're going to say here, create a replication rule. Right? Relax and follow the flow so you can easily understand. So create a replication rule. So here it is asking replication rule name. So I'm going to say Tom website, Tom web rule. Just an example. Any name is fine. Give any name. Okay, but just a name. Doesn't matter. Enable, status is enabled, so we'll do it. Now, if you scroll down, it is picking already source bucket. Do you guys agree? Because I started from there. Now choose the rule scope, limit the scope of this rule using one or more filter, apply to all objects. So I want to do apply for all objects. It means entire bucket will be copied, right? This will be a question in your exam. They will give you a scenario. The scenario will be like that, customer has lots of data and they want you to, do something. Basically, they are giving you a hint that you have source and you want to work on your new customer base in different country. And you're talking about application. That's pretty much they're giving you a hint. So basically, you just say use an application and you don't have to copy it all. So I'm going to apply. If you do limited, then you can use particular folder, particular pattern. So example, you can say data copies or customer copies. Here we can say everything. So no filter type. So we're going to select apply all objects. Make sense? Now destinations. So you can say choose a bucket in account, specify bucket in another account. So I have the same account, right? So I should be able to pull up. And remember, we did a bucket with Tom. So Tom, and it should show Mumbai if I can. So Tom, and what was that? Mumbai. So you can see I can see Amazon S3 can't detect whether the versioning is enabled on the destinations. No problem. Let me, what was the name I gave? Tom Web.
Tom destination.
Tom destination. Yeah, thank you. Tom destination. Let me copy. I have here, right? So I'm going to copy that. So
You can even browse.
yeah. So here, let's see if I can get directly. Otherwise, I have to refresh. So it got it. It got it. See, automatically it got it. Do you guys agree or not? Because it picked up Asia, Mumbai, right? So as soon as I write, I got it. Otherwise, you need to go here, browse, and you have to refresh and get it. Most likely going to get that, right? So it doesn't need to be in my account. You can also transfer to another account. So example, I have done work and I want to transfer to Bill. I can. So you can see specific bucket in another account. But in that case, permission should be needed. You might have key issues and all. You may want to handle that as well. Now, IAM role, I will ask Amazon to pick. So choose from existing IAM role. Now, if you are doing here, so example here, if choose from existing IAM role. So if you are doing this to this, right, most likely you need IAM full role, right? So we'll try to see here, choose from existing role, which if you have it, enter IAM role for ARM. So here, we don't have any rule which we can think about it. So if I'm going to do role, I need a S3 full. What I need a S3 full. Did we create an S3 full anytime? Role? If not, we can create a role, right? I think we
Yeah,
created
we did it last week.
we created one time when we did EC2. Remember, we did a last week EC2. So I might have that. So you can say S3. You can search about S3 full. Somewhere you will find it. Just search S3 full. You will find that. We created EC2 full or something. You can see there are so many roles out there. So you might have because we created that. So you can pick any of rule, which is S3 full. Why? Because you're going to create update buckets, right? So it's a good idea to pick that. So I'm going to pick one of them. I'm not sure which one I used last time, but I'll say yes, EC2 S3 full access. Make sense? If you don't have, you know what to, you need to create the role. So you can go to IAM, which we did last week, right? Role, and you give a role permission S3 full. That is done. We are not going to do replication encryption. We are not doing change storage class is the replicated object. I don't want to do anything. I want to keep the storage class standard. No problem. Here, so here they are giving an additional replication option. Replication time control 99% in 15 minutes. Replication matrix notifications means you can notify also. Delete marker replication. I'm not changing any of them. Okay, I'm gonna do save. Ready? If everything goes well, after a few minutes, I should have 2 objects in Mumbai. So I'm saving it. Now it says, see, existing object, do you want to replicate exist? I say yes. Why? Because I don't want to add new file right now. I want to move 2 files, index and error. So I'll say yes and submit. So it seems like it's going to create the successful rule. I hope so. So it's automatically now. So here, job posting, automatically run job when it is ready, right? And everything looks good. I just need to save it. Choose existing, create a job, that's fine. Wait to run when it's ready. Okay, automatically run, that's fine. Run the job when it is ready. Okay, and generate completion report, all tasks, path to completion report. I don't need anything. Permissions, perfect. Choose from existing role. So what is the permission? View IAM role policy template. I do not need anything. I'm going to do save. So it's asking, okay, here we go. I don't need a report at all. So completion report I don't need, and save it. So uncheck the completion report. So it's going to give me green. As soon as it gives me green, means my rule is established. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 and its rule is established. Okay, so now you can see here it will give us some status. You may want to refresh a little bit because you are in person. It takes time. It won't happen instantly because we are using free version. If you use accelerated, there is a concept called accelerated. It will give you option also. So you can see after a few seconds, it will show the completed. Right now it's preparing, which is good. I'm going to click on that so you can see the status. So preparing. Now I'm tempted to see Mumbai. What is the Mumbai is doing? So I'll go to Mumbai, and Mumbai I'm going to search Tom destination, which is this one, and I'm going to click on that just to see if there is an object came, because so far nothing came. Right after 2-3 minutes it should come. It takes a couple of minutes first time, but it does come. And I'm going to refresh here so at least we can see here active, 2 objects. And if I refresh, you just need to say 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. Just say ta-da, come on.
No.
Not yet. Now it is active. It says 2 objects. It's still not say complete 0, but let's see. No, it does. It says that 15 minutes. It does say 15 minutes, but it is completing much faster. I have noticed that. Not yet.
The other side is 0%.
But it does detect that there are 2 objects to replicate, which is good. It is active. Let's see. If you get tada, let me know.
Ta-da!
Oh, you got it? How come you got so fast?